the Seattle Seahawks had a decision to make by 4 p.m. ET, 1 p.m. PT on Tuesday, Mar. 5, and the decision involves one of the top 3 players on their defensive end Frank Clark. Coincidentally, the other 2 of the top 3 will also have their futures somewhat decided in 2019. First, free safety Earl Thomas will likely hit free agency and then is even more likely to part ways with the only team he's ever known. Later in the offseason, perhaps even during training camp, the Seahawks are expected to reach a multi-year extension with middle linebacker Bobby Wagner, who will enter the final year of his contract in 2019. Of course, even if they don't extend Wagner, that's a pretty big indication for what to expect in 2020. But before those 2, all eyes are situated firmly on Clark, as the team's only real candidate to franchise tag. The Seahawks rarely find themselves in a situation where a top-flight player is set to earn his free agency status and thus haven't used the franchise tag in years, but with the team wanting to wait to extend Clark combined with Clark not accepting any early extension discounts, the 2 sides have continued to hammer out a contract both can live with, but the question on everyone's mind now is, will that contract get done in time? The answer was no. The Seahawks did end up using the franchise tag on Clark and now will have to continue to work on where his future with the team goes from here. Here's everything you need to know about Clark's new situation as a freshly tagged player. The Seahawks are getting set to reshape their roster starting with the NFL Combine this week. Stay informed right along with us. Take 5 seconds to sign up for our free Seahawks newsletter now. RIP. Paul Allen. Source: the Seahawks have franchised to Frank Clark. Albert Breer, at Albert Breer, March 4, 2019. The Seahawks used the non-exclusive franchise tag option on Clark on Monday, which means he'll be with the team for the 2019 season unless he signs an offer sheet with another team. The Seahawks would then have the right to match that deal, but if they don't, the Seahawks would receive 2 first-round picks as a result. Naturally, teams aren't apt to risk that for a single star player, so it would be quite the coup if Clark actually explored free agency at all. Big time for my brother at the @Frank_at Seahawks, Jarran Reed, at 1J_Reed, March 4, 2019. The Seattle Seahawks will soon also have to figure out what they're going to do with Jarran Reed. He enters the final year of his deal in 2019 as a former second-round pick who put together a 10.5 sack season in 2018. He had just 3 sacks through all of his first 2 seasons. Now, Reed and Clark have formed a formidable defensive line unit, but they need help. Of course, the first step was keeping Clark in the fold, and the Seahawks have done just that. I can confirm franchise tag coming for Frank Clark. Team will continue to work toward a long-term deal, but tag assures he stays put for 2019. Seahawks can continue to negotiate with Clark on a long-term contract until July 15. Bob Condotta, at Bcadota, March 4, 2019. The Seahawks aren't resting on their laurels even with the fallback option of a franchise tag in play. If they had their druthers, they'd rather get a long-term deal done instead of using the franchise tag at all, but that outcome wasn't meant to be. Instead, they'll use the tag and continue to negotiate with Clark on long deal to replace the tag tender he would play on if he has to head into the season without a new deal. Speaking of which, but more likely it would be around $5 million difference. They don't want to balloon the cap hits in 2020 by too much either. Chris Clough, at Seahawk Talk, March 4, 2019. One of the reasons they'd like to get a deal done without Clark actually playing on the tag in 2019 is the money aspect. If he signs a multi-year deal, the initial cap hit will be spread over the term of the deal, especially with the signing bonus alleviating some of the first-year salary. That means in 2019 his cap hit should be smaller than if he was playing under just the franchise tag. The Seahawks have the cap space to sign Clark either way, but obviously less money off the cap in 2019 helps them in free agency. Now, can they get a deal done before free agency opens up? The Seahawks are using the franchise tag on Frank Clark, according to ESPN's Dan Graziano and others. It means Clark remains under contract for at least another season at a salary of $17.128 million. The two sides can continue to negotiate a long-term https://t.co/Bert4K3ZOC, Brady Henderson, at Brady Henderson, March 4, 2019. Since the Seahawks did end up having to use the tag on Frank Clark, they will have to eat $17.128 million on a single year unless they can come to terms on a multi-year deal before July 15, as we stated earlier. Then, Clark's multi-year contract would erase the franchise tag tender amount. If the Seahawks didn't reach a new deal with Clark by July, they wouldn't be able to discuss a new multi-year deal again until next offseason. So it's important to get this deal done before free agency to know they have the additional open cap space, or at the very latest July, if they want to keep Clark. No surprise. Buying time for a long-term deal, July 15th deadline, while keeping him from free agency that opens March 15th. Tagging him not only allows them to pretty much exclusively continue their negotiations with Clark, but keeps other teams from running up the price and Clark bolting in free agency without the Seahawks having any recourse. Of course, Clark can attempt to leave, something is unlikely to do, but the Seahawks would still have final say on whether he did leave or not. March 4, 2019. The Seahawks were regular users of the franchise tag before John Schneider and Pete Carroll came to town. Now they rarely touch the stuff. Because of their unprecedented run of drafting elite talent, the Seahawks pretty much had all their players under contract or were willing to let them hit the market in free agency because they weren't elite talent. Now, as they rebuild, they've finally used their tag for only the second time since Schneider and Carroll took over. I have believed all along Frank Clark will get done before the tag deadline. LeCan for a just confirmed deal like he at $21 million a PY. Get excited. Will be a bargain by the end of the deal. The floor for the contract is obviously $17 million per year, as he's currently set to make that for one season. Clark's probably looking at Mac's last contract for the ceiling. Mac makes $23.5 million per year, so $21 million seems like the right middle point for Clark. Frank Clark from Seahawks racks up the sacks for the right price. Pick.twitter.com/8nnjksoe. Bills fans speak up, at Bills fans speak. March 3, 2019. Remember the whole using Khalil Mack as the baseline thing? Well, as it turns out, Mack is a pretty solid baseline as the only player to outperform Clark's production over the last 3 years, but if you go purely on a per-snaps basis, Clark actually has the edge. Of course, it does matter that Mack can see the field more, but you'd like a bit more bang for your buck with Mack compared to Clark considering the snaps advantage. But make no mistake about it, Clark is an elite pass rusher. Me seeing that the Seahawks are gonna sign Frank Clark to a long-term deal. Pick.twitter.com/ifbeefhim. Mike at BIGPLAY, at DutchMariner56, March 2, 2019. I would just like to know what this means. Is it good or bad? Does he want the Seahawks to stay away from Clark or extend him or franchise tag him? What does he want to happen? Someone please let me know. This makes absolutely no sense to me, so naturally, you had to see it too. You're welcome. Maui voice number 1, Disby Wags. Number 2, Dis number 54. Number 3, I'm number 55. Number 4, I'm a Seattle Seahawks. Question mark. Frank Clark, at the @RalFrank_, February 23, 2019. Clark and the Seahawks have both stated they want to get a deal done, and Clark has also stated he wants to be in Seattle for the long haul. Here's just a small offering of proof to that end. A Browns fan was trying to ask if his team should go after Clark and mistakenly used a picture of Bobby Wagner. After reading the fan the riot act, he also made sure to nod he wanted to stay in Seattle. My sense is that this is his second deal. Expect a 3 or 4 year deal with high GTD in the $21.50 range, hitting the market again less than 30 years old right now and re-enter free agency to do more damage in 3 or 4 years. Remember, even if the Seahawks don't get the job done now, edge testing today confirms this. Barely any day in Seattle's draft range fit their Leo profile. Frank Clark. https://t.co/gt5vml9yc, James Thomas, at James Thomas, March 3, 2019. With the Seahawks limited on the edge rushers to start, it behooves them to keep Clark's 13.5 sacks from 2018 in the picture. They lost Michael Bennett and Cliff Avril in 2018 and can't afford to lose any more quality pass rusher, especially when they don't have any replacement plans in place at the moment. Seahawks have 2 rookies in Jacob Martin and Rasheem Green, and while they have potential, neither sports the size and athleticism and know-how of Clark. Add to that, the draft is slim pickings and the urgency is upped a bit. This is non-exclusive franchise tag for Jadeveon Clowney, with the goal still being to reach long-term deal, per source. https://t.co/dictfpsloy, Adam Schefter, at Adam Schefter, March 4, 2019. The Seahawks also can't turn to free agency for any pass rushing help, or at least any young pass rushing help. The Texans took Clowney off the board on Monday, so the Seahawks won't be able to pair one of the best rushers in the league with another one of his buddies of the same caliber. In fact, the franchise tag went bananas on Monday ahead of the Tuesday deadline, meaning 2 big pass rushers not hitting the market, as Jadeveon Clowney and Dee Ford received franchise tags from Texans and Chiefs. Could Clark be next? Corbin Smith, at Corbin Smith, March 4, 2019. The Chiefs felt the same way about Dee Ford. He was actually the first pass rusher to be hit with the tag last week. Another young pass rusher off the board for Seattle. The question now is, will any of these players sign long-term deals? Again, defensive end franchise tag is $17.3 million for 2019, but Lawrence would get $20.57 million on a tag this year from Dallas. The CBA mandated 120% increase in consecutive tags. https://t.co/f78lhk2zz2, Greg Bell, at Bell Seattle, March 4, 2019. DeMarcus Lawrence will get tagged as well, except the difference being he'll be tagged for the 2nd straight year, which makes the price point steeper if he goes into the regular season under that franchise tag tender. Stated above, he'll make $20 million for 1 year, which honestly isn't a bad deal on a top-flight defensive end, but it really puts the Cowboys under pressure to get a long-term deal done or let him walk in 2020. They'll of course still be able to work on a deal for this offseason until July, which is fine. I wouldn't fault that being the narrative in 2015, and I wouldn't fault it not being the narrative in 2019. I'd wonder how many people will be writing about the domestic violence angle today and when the day comes that he signs a huge contract. Field Gulls, at Field Gulls, March 4, 2019. Frank Clark's past will always be a part of the story somewhat, or at least how the media handles his past. People have to be allowed to change and grow, and by all accounts from the Seahawks organization, Clark has done that and become a better leader. He's made some mistakes along the way, including trashing a female reporter online in 2017 for bringing up his past. The team and Clark quickly issued an apology. Now Clark seems to be on the right track by all accounts.